This is the second video in the Mastering Bootstrap Sass in Wappler series. Now that your environment is set up, it's time to understand how Bootstrap actually loads its Sass files, because this structure determines how you customize, override, and extend Bootstrap in a clean, maintainable way. Here we start where we left off in the installation video. If you have restarted the project, don't forget to run the build command in the terminal. Now let's see what the official Bootstrap documentation has to say on the subject. In the Sass section of the documentation, we scroll down to importing. Here we see two options, option A and option B. Looking at the first option, this is the exact same as we currently have in our project. But for the sake of this exercise, let's copy and paste this code to replace our code. We'll leave our custom code in place so that we do not spoil our project. Saving the Sass file shows that no changes have been made. The index page is exactly how we had it. But what have we imported when we include Bootstrap? To find out, we navigate to the Node Modules folder and select Bootstrap and SCSS. At the bottom of the list, we see the file that we imported. Opening the file, we see a bunch of imports, many of which have no relevance to our project. This is the exact reason why Bootstrap is commonly called a bloated framework. Let's take the first two lines. As you can see here, they mere inject Bootstrap banner text. Not needed for our project. Then we have a set of imports that are for all Bootstrap projects, regardless of their content. The next list imports the code that is required for the layout and various components. In other words, in our current configuration, we are importing a bunch of stuff that is not used in our project. And, as a side note, this is exactly what happens when you do not use Sass, but rely on the CSS version of Bootstrap. Let us return to the Bootstrap documentation on Sass to have a look at the second option. Here we have a much more detailed structure of the Sass file. Let's copy and paste this into our Sass file. And save the file. When we now go to the index page, we see that out buttons are no longer styled as intended. The easy fix is to look at section 6 in our Sass file. Here we see that buttons have not been imported. Instead, we see that images have been imported. As there are no images in our project, let us change this to buttons. After saving the file, we see that our properly styled buttons have returned. So, what are we supposed to do? How do we know what to import and what not? Let's go back to the Bootstrap documentation. This suggests that we should do a full import from the Bootstrap Sass file as a starting point. This may be okay for smaller projects. My personal view is that adding the components as required is the better option. However, it will not be the first time that I have been proved wrong. The choice is yours to make. Let's now take a walkthrough of our main Sass file. This is where we are standing at the top of the Bootstrap Sass mountain, a place where order matters, dependencies stack, and the compiler is a strict but fair guardian. Each import is a doorway, and you're about to walk through them in the only sequence that keeps the universe from collapsing into a cascade of undefined variables. Section 1. The Chamber of Functions. This is where everything begins. Before Bootstrap can talk about colors, spacing, maps, or mixins, it needs its language, the Sass functions that power color manipulation, calculations, and SVG helpers. You're essentially loading the spellbook before attempting any magic. Section 2. The Hall of Variable Overrides. This is our moment of influence. Bootstrap hasn't loaded its variables yet, so anything you define here becomes the truth when the variables file is imported. Want a different $primary? A custom $font family base? This is where you plant those seeds. Section 3. The Vault of Bootstrap Variables. Now Bootstrap reveals its defaults, but because you spoke first in step 2, your overrides take precedence. The dark mode variables join the party here too, giving you access to color mode aware design tokens. Section 4. The Map Override Atrium. Bootstrap uses Sass maps for things like color palettes, spacers, breakpoints, and utilities. If you want to extend or modify those maps, not just override variables, this is your spot. Think of it as editing the world map before the rest of the kingdom is built. Section 5. The Core Foundations. Now the real machinery comes online. Maps. All the Sass maps are finalized and made available. Mixins, the reusable logic that powers components and utilities. Root, CSS custom properties get generated here, forming the living backbone of Bootstrap's runtime theming. You've now loaded the engine room. Section 6. The gallery of optional modules. This is where you curate your Bootstrap experience. Each import is a room filled with a specific set of styles. Utilities, margin, padding, display, flex, text helpers. Reboot, opinionated resets. Type, typography rules. Buttons, the button system. Containers, layout containers. Grid, the responsive grid. Helpers, small, handy classes. You choose what your project needs. Bootstrap becomes modular, lean, and tailored. Section 7. The Utilities API Forge. This is the final pass, the forge where Bootstrap takes the utility maps and generates the actual classes. If you've added custom utilities or modified the maps earlier, this is where they materialize into real CSS. It's the moment where ideas become reality. Section 8. Your creative workshop. The pipeline is complete. Bootstrap is fully assembled. Now the floor is yours. Add custom components, override classes, define new utilities, or layer in your project-specific SCSS. You're no longer navigating Bootstrap, you're building on top of it. In Wappler, this structure becomes your foundation. You'll import Bootstrap Sass, override variables before they're used, and selectively include only the components you need. Understanding the import order is what makes that possible. In the next video, we'll take this structure and start customizing Bootstrap, the right way, inside Wappler. You'll see how to override variables, add your own Sass, and build a clean, scalable workflow. If you're following the series, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next step in building a modern Bootstrap Sass workflow in Wappler. My name is Ben Plessier, known as Ben in the Wappler community.